down one. Crusher for the lead. And go!
Somebody's got to help.
Out comes Seibert, open three, got it!
Sanford,
Declaring the winner by unanimous decision,
Dayton Flyers.
What's up, Dayton Flyer fans, the Gem City, and my Dayton Flyer family, wherever you're watching. And it was a Dayton win, 70-65 over the St. Louis Billikens, an Arch Baron Cup dub. Once again, we get back in the win column in that, but just a great win for the Flyers, and a rocky game throughout this this match, with the first half being down 30-28. But besides the point, let's get into what this is, who I am, and what the unanimous decision is all about. I'm Chris King. Obviously, you guys know me, DYT Chris King, on Twitter, on X. And, since Elon Musk doesn't allow people to chat on the Twitter chat, I figured we'd get it on YouTube. And this is pretty much a big thanks to the Cream City Media Group. The Cream City Crossover is a Milwaukee Bucks postgame show that me and a couple of other guys do on our postgame, which is basically just what we started off of a radio show based out of 97.3 The Game Milwaukee. And you guys might be wondering, well, how does this all tie together, right? How does the Midwest connection work here with Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and obviously me being a Dayton guy? So we all remember Kostas Antetokounmpo, right? I mean, he was something for Dayton, but he was a draft pick, and we'll live with it. Probably in one of Anthony Grant's worst year, his worst year as a Dayton head coach. And ultimately, I just was able to recognize what Giannis Antetokounmpo was able to do for this Dayton community. I mean, in the short time that he was there, it seemed like he showed a lot of love to the University of Dayton, giving out free shoes to the team. I think we all remember the content on that. And then when you talk about him, the viral video of him playing in the Cronin Center, really started to like Giannis. And then me, obviously, I'm a big college basketball guy, but, we don't really have this is our pro team, right? I guess you could say Cleveland, Indiana, whatever. But I think I just kind of took a liking to Giannis, especially because his brother was a Flyer, and just the respect he showed the Dayton community, I loved it. So started rooting on the Bucks, and got to shout out my guys, Trey Crosby III and John Tyus, the two guys that I do radio with for 97.3 The Game Milwaukee. They obviously extended the invite. I was on Bucks Twitter, followed Trey. He followed me back, extended the invite to get on the radio show because he knew this was something that I wanted to follow. And, it's been great ever since. And we've been doing Milwaukee Bucks postgame shows for about two months now. I knew the technology side, so I was able to give this beautiful layout that you see in the background: Obi, Anthony Grant, Devin Oliver, Chris Wright on the right there. So yeah, it's been cool, and I'm excited to share this journey with you guys. I know I'm picking up late, right? I mean, 16 games into the season, but the Dayton Flyers win it tonight, 70-65. Let's get into the game recap, right? DaRon Holmes, once again, just proving he's the best player in the Atlantic 10, maybe one of the best players in the country. I'll put him over Zach Edey any day. 29, and he had 14 rebounds tonight, 1 assist. He was phenomenal, and that's after only scoring 4 points in the first half. I mean, Dayton ended up getting them the ball on the low block and allowed them to work, right? So that's what you're going to start seeing from this Dayton team is when you're having nights like that, right? When other Atlantic 10 teams are going to defend DaRon Holmes, double him early on, then they're going to force him to pass it out. But at the end of the day, he's still the best player on the floor, and you feed him and feed him wisely, and that's what happened in the second half tonight. Just some other stats that we can get through. Nate Santos, 6 and 9. I thought he did well on just rebounding effort. Didn't really shoot it all that well. Didn't really shoot all that much. Didn't shoot it well from three. Enoch Cheeks, right? I mean, he's been tremendous. When you have a guard that damn near puts up a double-double, 9 points, 9 rebounds, that's something special. I thought he had it going in the first half with the shots, and then he lost it, right? He lost it, started missing some wide-open ones, but that's fine because this is a guy who impacts the game in other ways, not just scoring. I know you guys were expecting Enoch to kind of bring that 15 points per game over to Dayton, and it's just not happening that way. But it seems like he's really bought into that role, and love having him out there. Don't see him anywhere else other than being a Flyer, so it's great. And then Javon Bennett, rough shooting night. He had 6 points, 5 rebounds, shot 1 of 8 from 3, and I think that kind of is what St. Louis tried to do, right? Is when they got it down to Deron Holmes, passed it out. They made Javon Bennett try to beat the Billikens tonight, and obviously that was not the recipe for success. But I think Anthony Grant at halftime made the correct adjustments to get Deron Holmes the ball regardless. Kobe Elvis, this is interesting. He just had 19 minutes logged versus Duquesne, and I was actually there. Shout out my guy Sully, by the way. Hey, Sully, he did so much for us. I mean, creating a platform and trying to follow in his footsteps a little bit. That's a great voice that we all used to listen to during the 2019-2020 season. And yeah, shout out Sully. So he got me tickets, and went and saw Kobe Elvis. Didn't really play much. I thought Javon Bennett had it going, especially guarding Day Grant against the Duquesne Dukes. But it was good to see Kobe Elvis back in kind of in his form tonight. I thought I saw some good things. When it comes to taking care of the ball, I thought he did well with that. Only 2 turnovers on the night. Scored the ball a little bit, 8 points. And then shout out to Kobe, man. He set the free throw record, so that was cool. Missed the one right after, so got his name in the record books and then got right out of there. 37 free throws in a row. Shout out to Kobe. And look, I know Kobe, I haven't been the biggest fan of Kobe, and he's a volume scorer, right? So I just feel like some games he can shoot you out of the game. Like we saw that in Northwestern, we saw that in Houston. Didn't shoot it all too well. Didn't really start the season that well from the floor. But this is what makes this team so dangerous: is that you've got guys who can kind of provide some padding for the bad shooting performances on Kobe Elvis. So that's it's good to have, and it's a good job on Anthony Grant going out into the transfer portal, going out and getting recruits that could provide that little padding for Kobe Elvis. So next, let's get into the AG assessment. Right, tonight I even tweeted out, I thought during that 9-0 run in the first half, Anthony Grant was horrible. Made some pretty interesting adjustments. I mean, he threw Zimmy out there, didn't play that well. They attacked him and didn't decide to call a timeout until the media timeout came when Dayton had a big lead. I think it was probably like 7 or 9 at that point, and then St. Louis goes on a 14-0 run. And, that's been the situation with Anthony Grant is, he doesn't like to use his timeouts, and talent seems to carry him through some parts of games. But at the end of the day, obviously, he went into halftime. They knew what they needed to do. This staff knew what they needed to do to get the dub. So what I'll give Anthony Grant tonight, I'll just give him, I don't know, I'll just give him like a B-. You just can't let that happen. You can't throw the first punch and then expect to just coast, right? Like you can't go up that big early on in the first half against a team like St. Louis, who, by the way, I was not impressed with St. Louis and their personnel. I thought even last year after that season, in the offseason, Travis Ford lost a lot of guys, right? Yuri Collins and more, and they were kind of scrambling towards the beginning of the season. But credit to them. I mean, they fought hard tonight, but was not impressed with St. Louis at all. And Dayton made the adjustments and just fed the best player in pretty much all of the Atlantic 10 and probably the country. And that's why Deron Holmes was able to get right tonight. I also thought the offense kind of stalled out a little bit in points in the first half. I thought a lot of one-and-dones. They left Enoch open a lot after he started, 2 for 2 from 3. And then they were obviously leaving Javon Bennett open. By the way, did we see Travis Ford? Did we see Travis Ford try to defend a Javon Bennett 3? Like, what's going on there? Yeah, that guy, his days are probably numbered at St. Louis. So, yeah, that's it for Travis Ford. But other things, Anthony Grant, I thought they did a good job of just moving the ball as well when Deron came out. I thought Isaac Jack provided some huge minutes in Deron's absence, just giving him a blow. And that was really good for this Dayton team. They were able to move it, get some open looks, and yeah, they really attacked St. Louis right there in the second half. And then let's go to Deron Holmes. Just phenomenal. And look, obviously I'm starting this a lot later in the season. Otherwise, you guys know I'll probably be high on Deron Holmes all season long. But just the ability to come back to college, right? Take the NBA draft feedback, knock down, what is he shooting? Around 40% from three. I think it's huge. I think Deron Holmes, and the biggest part about Deron Holmes that I love is that he loves the University of Dayton. He loves Dayton. He loves the fans. He loves the community. Everybody's talking about, oh, they were throwing bags at him to leave, or trying to get him to transfer to Duke, whatever that was, and just for him to trust Anthony Grant, for him to trust that their staff would build the team around him, it was huge. He was a big part in this offseason, even though I think they had a couple of commits before Deron ended up coming back. But when you start to build the team around Deron Holmes that can play around him, and when teams are game planning for just him only, that they can weather the storm, that's huge. And that's what happened so far. That's what's happened so far this season. I mean, 16 games, and the Dayton Flyers have only lost 2. And so it's been huge. Deron Holmes, I saw him in person, probably one of his best games in a Dayton Flyers career at Duquesne. And it's not going to stop, guys. Like, this Deron Holmes II is for real. He's that guy. And there's not enough to say about him. Like, you watch him in person, and it's wowing what Deron Holmes is able to do. I love it. Deron has just been huge. And when it comes to running the offense, right, getting him in the pick and roll has been huge because he pops as well. And, right, like I said, over 40% from three, just drilling threes. It's so hard to guard. And then you just look at tonight. First half, they kind of shut him down, but he never wavered. They never stopped going to him in the second half, and that's what you saw tonight with Deron Holmes putting up 29 and 14 in this game. I thought, a couple of free throw. We'll talk about the free throw shooting too, but 16 of 27 tonight for the Dayton Flyers. It was abysmal from the free throw line. Dayton obviously didn't have it going. He shot 10 of 17. Deron did. Missed a couple front ends of the 1-and-1s, but that's fine. I mean, it'll happen. It'll happen like that sometimes. And, Deron is a decent free throw shooter this year, so obviously would have liked to have a couple of those back, but that's not the full story. I mean, 4 blocks too. He was working on Hargrove. Hargrove played a good game, and he, once again, never wavered, just walled up and played strong. Didn't foul at all. No fouls from Deron Holmes, and that's been huge too. Not a lot of teams have been able to get him into foul trouble, which I really liked. And then, Isaac Jack, want to talk about him as well. Off the bench, 3 points, 2 rebounds, but it just goes beyond the stat sheet, what he's able to provide when Deron is off the court. I mean, Isaac is a bruiser in there. He knows his role, just like Enoch does, and it's awesome to see a guy come in from Buffalo, recognizing that he can make that next step, and then ultimately, just play the backup role under Deron Holmes, which is tough to do for a sophomore, but I think he's here to stay, and I think he's here for the long run. Like, when you talk about Deron Holmes, we're only going to get one. This is the last season. We're only going to get the last couple months of this season out of Deron Holmes because he's a first rounder, in my opinion. So when Isaac Jack is stepping into that starting role next year, we'll see what they do in the transfer portal and commitments, whatever. He'll be well prepared, and he's been battle tested a lot throughout this season, and just being able to compete with Deron Holmes in practice, I think that'll really improve his game. Wonder if he will be able to shoot the 3 ball at all. I don't know. He's a little awkward out there with his jumper, but we'll see what happens with Isaac Jack. But yeah, Deron Holmes, 29, 14, 1 assist. He played tremendously well tonight, and just right, like, the Flyers ranked 21st, finally get that national attention. We're not really known for keeping that national attention when we crack the top 25, but tonight they did it, and Deron Holmes carried them, and that's what you'll see a lot in this A10 league is that there's not going to be a big that will be able to stop him at all. He might have some off nights. He might not shoot the best in some nights, but what will that still equal? Probably 15 points. I mean, he's just unreal. He is a player that a lot of the national media and national guys aren't really paying attention to, and they try to, but it just doesn't work out that way. They're very clouded by the Zach Edey situation, but I think DaRon Holmes is right up there. Kyle Filipkowski or whatever his name is for Duke. They're all locked in on those two guys, and then DaRon Holmes playing at a mid-major and putting us on the map once again. Just huge to be in this position. I know a lot of you guys. We'll just get into the thoughts on the season, but with this, a lot of you guys were calling for AG's head last year, and I don't blame you, right? Like I saw everybody's points. I thought it was valid in some areas of criticism, but I just never wanted to go there with AG in last particular season because I didn't want to restart, right? And I knew the potential that this team had if DaRon Holmes was going to come back. And, you just kind of got to trust what Anthony Grant and staff have in mind for this Dayton Flyers team. I thought he did a great job of getting the right pieces in the transfer portal. And, obviously we still have freshmen, Marvell Allen, Petrus. That's another thing. Where's he at? Think he's getting better. Saw that somewhere on Twitter. But, Marvell Allen, Jayon Simon as well. He's coming back. So those two red shirts. But not just that. Obviously, the transfer portal. Look, starting five, we got three of them. Javon Bennett's been huge with the absence of Malachi. Just taking care of the ball. He didn't have his best night tonight, but he shows a ceiling sometimes. The Duquesne game, he played tremendous defense on Day Grant, one of the best guards in the league, averaging 18 points per game. He held him to 0 at halftime. And then you talk about what Nate Santos has brought. Nate Santos, not just the game winner against LSU, I know but just the whole Charleston Classic, he was great. He was phenomenal throughout this whole season so far, and I love what Nate brings. I love the find by Anthony Grant, recognizing that this is a guy who barely played at Pitt, and he can come in and make an impact right away, and it's been huge. It's been huge. A lot of people didn't know how we were going to fill that Tumani role. Well, I think this is as best as it gets to fill the Tumani role because, look, I mean, yeah, he's an NBA player, but when you got a guy almost averaging a double-double at the 4 spot and you compare him up with DaRon Holmes, one of the best bigs in the country, then that's going to set your team up for success, especially when he can knock down the 3. Probably shot the 3 ball so far this season better than Tumani did for the Dayton Flyers. So, just a great piece to get. And then Enoch Cheeks, right? I can't say enough about that kid. Like I mentioned before, you guys were kind of skeptical of his offense, even though he averaged 15 at Robert Morris. You guys are thinking, where is his offense going to come from? Well, we've seen flashes, right? The OSU scrimmage, 5 for 5 in the first half, 15 points for Enoch Cheeks. Get that man a lap dance. Get him a lap dance at Cheeks Gentleman Club. No, but in all seriousness, we saw that. We saw the SMU game where in the first half he was able to keep us in the game, right? He knocked down 3 threes in a row versus SMU. I would love to see him put a full 40 minutes together offensively because he does get hot and cold sometimes, but I would love to see. And I think he poses one of those threats where he can score from all 3 levels. I've seen him hit the mid-range in the pick and roll with DaRon. I've seen him get to the hoop, draw contact, and one, whatever it may be. And he's just tough, man. He's just tough. He can jump out of the gym. He defends bigger guards, and he is going to be the reason why this Dayton team can go far in March, just depending on his play style. But it's consistent, right? Like, there hasn't been a game where you've been mad at Enoch Cheeks for not showing enough effort during this season, I think. And so I think that's what will make this Dayton team go far. And yeah, he's been tremendous. And then obviously I talked about Isaac Jack. And what I think this does for this Dayton team, right, going to grab all those transfers and why this Dayton team has been so good is because you pair DaRon Holmes with all these guys who seemingly love each other. Like this group loves each other, and you can see it. And I just love that about this team. But why this team has been so successful is obviously you can score the 3 ball at a higher level than what you did last year. but the consistency of what you're getting from each guy is a lot better on a nightly basis than what you got last year. I don't want to call out anybody from last year, but a lot of times guys just had those nights where they just didn't show up. And, there's a reason why those guys haven't been too successful at their next stops, I would say. Mongolian Mike, I thought he did a lot for this team as well, but it seemed like the better move to go in a different direction and go get some load up on guards, especially in the absence of Malachi Smith that nobody was really expecting, but he is an injury-prone player. He's been an injury-prone player since he kind of stepped on campus, I would say, maybe after his freshman year. And so I felt like the Dayton staff just did a tremendous job of loading up on talent that can be a top 25 team and even more, right? Like, I think this Dayton team, if they keep winning, and I'm not going to say run the table because I know in the Atlantic 10 there's going to be some landmines, there's going to be some tough places to play at, but I think this Dayton team has what it takes, right? When you look at the 2019-2020 team, to go in there and beat this Atlantic 10. And I'll get into the Atlantic 10 a little later, but I didn't really think that this A10 is as tough as it might have been in the 2019-2020 season. But I think this is a Dayton team who just is head and shoulders better than everybody. So that'll be huge. We'll see if they ever get tested. Probably some road games are going to be tough, and it's all about matchups, right? Like there's teams beating teams that have no business getting beat, right? Fordham beat George Washington, but then George Washington turned around and blows out George Mason. So it's been a crazy season and a lot of parity in the Atlantic 10, but not just the parity in the Atlantic 10. I believe I think it's the parity in college basketball as a whole, especially with NIL, transfer portal, immediate eligibility, and stuff like that. So that's what's made this season so cool. In my opinion, I'm just glad to be at the top of it for this Dayton squad. Eddie Slot says, shot like shit and still won. Off night for the Ures, it happens. No, definitely. I thought Dayton had some open looks, and it's not like they were forcing anything. I tweeted this earlier in the game. I said, well, St. Louis is working hard for every bucket, and Dayton wasn't. And then St. Louis went on that run. But they were throwing up lucky stuff and getting lucky things to fall. And I just think that is what you're going to see on nights like this where Deron Holmes is getting doubled in the post and he's got to kick it out and the shooters just aren't knocking it down. You're a top 5 3-point percentage team in the country, but, some nights it's just not going to be your night. And I thought Deron Holmes just willed this team to a victory, and that's what really gives me the confidence throughout this Atlantic 10 season that, look, we might not lose a game. We might not lose even past 1 or 2 games. So, yeah, I agree. I think we shot poorly for sure. Let me check what the official numbers were from 3. Kobe Brea had a nice night, though, tonight, 3 for 7 from 3. We're 8 for 28. 8 for 28 from 3. Still found a way to get the win, and that's encouraging. 2-game homestand. We'll talk about the Rhode Island Rams and Archie Miller coming in. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But hopefully, our averages level out on Saturday, 12:30 game, to just leave no doubt. Please leave no doubt against Archie. All right, so now we'll look around the Atlantic 10. A wild one in Pittsburgh. The Duquesne Dukes starting off 0-4 in this Atlantic 10 season. Many thought this Duquesne Dukes team was a top 3 team in the Atlantic 10, and I didn't necessarily disagree at that point. Right, they had a horrible season a couple seasons ago. I think they didn't win past 5 games at least, but then they turned it around quickly, and that's what you see in college basketball with, like I mentioned, NIL, transfer portal, all that, immediate eligibility, and I think what you see, and this burns a lot of teams, right? It burns St. Bonaventure. a couple years back when everybody falls for the hype when everybody's coming back, everybody's returning. And sometimes it just doesn't happen like that. A couple bad bounces and you're 0-4 in Atlantic 10 play. I think that's the theme with this Duquesne Dukes team. And I also saw on Twitter a very questionable call in that one. Richmond ended up beating Duquesne 63-61. I think the Duquesne Dukes fans and even Keith Danbrough, I'll find that quote. He went into the post-game press conference and he was livid. And I guess there was a hard foul under the rim. And I think it was Trey Clark who got fouled. I think they thought the Richmond guy pulled him down, and then it could have been an intentional foul, which, that's up for debate. But you got to make your free throws at the end of the day. He had 2 free throws to tie it, missed them, and Richmond prevailed. And Duquesne had the lead all game. And Richmond came back from a 5-point deficit and won that game 63-61. Just take a look at some other scores. Cincinnati got a big win tonight. That was huge. They had been losing games in the worst ways, and they tried to do it tonight. Cincinnati versus TCU at Fifth Third, and Cincinnati has the ball. They're tied up. I forget what the score was, maybe 77-77. And they're tied up, right? And Dan Skillings gets 2 free throws, misses them both with 3 seconds left. And then Cincinnati fouls TCU. It's a tie game, right? Cincinnati fouls TCU, and they miss the front end of 1-1. It goes to overtime. Cincinnati wins by 4. In OT, I believe it was, let's check the score. Okay, so it must have been 67 earlier. 81-77, the Cincinnati Bearcats beat a ranked team, and now they're 1-2 in the Big 12, I believe. 13-4 overall. So good for Dayton's net ranking, obviously. It was tough witnessing Cincinnati lose these big games, right? They lost a couple close ones, and that was just heartbreaking for them. But I thought that was a pretty good team when we played them. Just totally outmuscled them in that one. Obviously the Dayton Flyer fans showed out for that one as well. Just some other scores around. Oh, I really want to talk about this Alabama team. Nate Oates shoving a Missouri player. What was that? I mean, what are we doing there? I guess the Missouri player ended up getting into the Alabama huddle, and Nate Oates, he took matters into his own hands and pushed him out of the huddle. So it was definitely interesting seeing the video of that. You just can't do that if you're a Division I basketball coach. Got to keep your cool. Wake Forest, NC State, there was a couple of ejections. Hunter Salas got ejected. Late game scrum. Wake Forest blew that one as well. NC State was trailing by 10 at halftime, and the Wolfpack ended up getting the dub by 7. Let's take a look around the Atlantic 10. Obviously, all these games don't really play on. Obviously, they don't play on the same day. So yesterday, George Washington beat George Mason. This George Mason team, they kind of seemed like a threat. Not necessarily to Dayton, but they seemed like a threat for the double bye at least. And now they've dropped 2 straight. St. Joseph's finally gets on track in the Atlantic 10 with their first win. They're 1-3. I knew St. Joseph's frauds. Let's be honest. Like, you have 2 guards that are great. Don't get me wrong. Eric Reynolds, former Dayton Flyer, Lynn Greer, who can really score the ball. Rasheer Fleming is a nice addition for them as well, the freshman forward. But outside of that, you don't get much. I mean, Xavier Brown's been good. But outside of that, you do not get much from this St. Joseph's team. And I talked about this in a tweet before. I said, look, if you can shut down their guards, they're not hard to beat. And I also think that, obviously, with them losing 3 straight in the Atlantic 10, it just shows that it's all about matchups. And people got fooled by St. Joseph's non-conference schedule when, me personally, I don't think Princeton's that good. They beat Villanova, who's kind of they're all right. But once they lost to Charleston, I was like, okay, people can come down to earth because that Charleston team also got beat by Duquesne. So college basketball has just been ridiculous this season. I mean, it's been great to watch from a fan perspective because I get to watch, obviously, the Dayton Flyers. They're sitting pretty at 14-2, first place in the Atlantic 10, I think tied for first. Have the opportunity to change that on Saturday where the Rhode Island Rams come into town, and, they're coming off a big win. Rhode Island, let me just check who they beat, I believe. Let's see who it was. Yeah, it was UMass. They beat UMass by 12, which I thought we could have taken care of them as well, better than what we did. Just didn't rebound the ball. The effort wasn't there in the second half. But yeah, they beat UMass by 12. They beat Davidson by 5. They beat St. Joe's by 4. So this is a Rhode Island team that we can't take lightly, right? And you know Archie Miller is going to have them ready. I'm interested to see your guys' videos for those of you who are in the arena on that day. I want to see if what the Dayton fans think about him. Obviously, I feel like the Red Scare will probably boo him, but I don't know about the sweater vests. You know, we'll see what the lower bowl does when it comes to Archie making his return to UD Arena. Obviously, got to get our get back against the Rhode Island Rams. They beat us last year. Shouldn't have beat us, but we had to go in Rhode Island and play that game. It's always a tough place to play, and they're going to be up. They're going to be up for us. You know, the 21st ranked team in the country, in the Dayton Flyers, just capped off a 70-65 win over St. Louis. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We got Rhode Island and the Archie Miller-led Rams, so we'll see how that goes. Let's look ahead of the next couple of games, though. Saturday we'll have the Dayton Flyers postgame, and then we'll have the Cream City crossover right after they play at 3. So it'd be nice for you guys to tune in. Yeah, just got to keep winning. Right? Like this is where we play for seeding, and I love that that's what we're able to do, because the past couple of seasons we've just been trying to grind out maybe a resume and try to stay away from the landmines, but the way that this season's going, I don't see many teams in the Atlantic 10 causing trouble. You got Rhode Island on Saturday, then these Saturday things. I think that's what we got going now for Dayton. But so we go Rhode Island at Tom Gola Arena on next Tuesday, a week from now, against LaSalle. I'll be here for the postgame probably for that one as well. And that one is always a tough one, right? They took away our ranking a couple years back. I think it was 2016 season, where we got into the top 25 and bounced right out because we couldn't win at Tom Gola Arena. They cost us an at-large bid. So we've got to make sure we take care of business in Philadelphia there. Then we go to Richmond, tough 2-game stretch, and then we get George Washington at home. And am I glad we play George Washington at home, because they've got some guys, and they can go off at any point. You got James Bishop, you got Darren Buchanan, the freshman. He's been huge, and we've seen this George Washington team. They're not one to play with when they have it going offensively. Fortunately, I think they beat us last year by double digits, but fortunately we get to play them at home, and hopefully they don't have it going. And then the month of February is a little bit tougher. You got St. Bonaventure, St. Joe's, VCU, and Duquesne. 4-game stretch. You can get out of that at least 3-1, maybe 4-0. That'll be good. And we want to talk about a little bit about the bracketology so far. Been seeing Dayton as high as a 2 seed, and a lot of people have them at 3. Joe Lenardi has them at a 5. Look, I want to be above a 5. That would be huge. If we can get above a 5, that would be great, because it makes the next round matchups just that much easier, that much more of a competitive advantage for us in terms of seeding wise. So I would love to see this Dayton team get a 2. I'd love to see them get a 3. And when we talk about the losses, Northwestern, and God, that is a game where I think Dayton probably wins 8 out of 10 times maybe, and they let that one slip away. Can't really fault them. I mean, maybe the scheduling was a little iffy on that, because you go to Northwestern in your second game after only playing SIU Edwardsville, like little tough scheduling on your team, but it got them battle ready, got them battle tested for the Charleston Classic. I thought the Northwestern game, at least, you go down 10 right before the half, right? It was tied. They go on a 10-0 run right before the half. It's just tough to claw back from that lead, especially when you're away in Evanston at Northwestern. So that can't really fault the guys for that. Would love for it to have been a win, and that we would probably be looking at a top 10 team in the country, and I know we could beat Northwestern. The Houston game, I don't think they're 14 points better than us either. Like I said, it just didn't rebound in that one either. Didn't rebound in the Northwestern game, and they ultimately got us. So Houston hasn't really been great on the road either, and it's just tough having that. It's not a stain losing to Houston, but by 14, it's like, dang, I wish we could have that back just to make the score at least look better, because I don't think they're 14 points better than us. But regardless, I appreciate everybody tuning in. This is the unanimous decision. It was far from a unanimous decision tonight with the Dayton Flyers beating the St. Louis Billikens 70-65. But regardless, a win is a win. You know, it is a win. The Dayton Flyers looking to increase their ranking from 21. A lot of guys left Dayton out of the top 25. And I guess the solution to that is just they don't know ball and just keep winning, and they'll come around eventually. We'll probably be in the top 20 if we beat Rhode Island, especially because TCU, number 19, just lost to Cincinnati, who we beat, right? So if we just take care of business on Saturday versus Archie Miller and Rhode Island, I think we'll be good. So for the Cream City Media Group, I'm at DYT Chris King. Chris King, you can call me, and follow on Twitter. Obviously, big thanks to Trey Crosby III. Big thanks to John Tyus for allowing me to have this platform, talk some Dayton Flyers hoops. And, you know, I didn't get to the – let me just see if there's any YouTube comments that we can maybe react to right before I head out. But, yeah, it was huge. It was a huge win tonight, just showing the dominance that this Dayton Flyers team can provide. So it's been huge. Let's see. Kansas State money line was a move. Nate Oates is the GOAT. Okay, so not too much on the YouTube, but regardless, appreciate you guys tuning in. Hell yeah, great win, unanimous decision. Hopefully we can get a unanimous decision on the Rhode Island Rams. So once again, for the Cream City Media Group and unanimous decision, the Dayton Flyers post-game show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm Chris King. Stay royal.